If you've ever felt stuck between wanting to start investing and not wanting to make a mistake, this video is for you. Most beginners don't avoid investing because they don't care. They avoid it because everything feels unclear. Too many choices, too many opinions, too much pressure to do it right. You might be thinking you need confidence first, or knowledge, or the perfect moment. But what usually stops people isn't a lack of information. It's the feeling that one wrong move could ruin everything. In the next few minutes, I'm going to slow this all the way down. Not to motivate you, not to rush you, but to help you understand a calm, simple way to start investing that removes most of the mental friction people feel at the beginning. This isn't about getting ahead of anyone else. It's about reaching a point where investing feels understandable instead of intimidating. And once it makes sense, it becomes much easier to stay consistent. This is not financial advice. It's a clear, educational explanation of how investing works at a basic level, explained for people who are just starting out. Nothing here is about quick wins, clever timing, or trying to outsmart the market. There are no promises. There's no pressure to act fast. What we're focusing on is understanding the system itself. Because when you understand the system, the anxiety drops. Most beginner stress comes from trying to make decisions before understanding what actually matters. This video is designed to reverse that order. You don't need to be confident to start watching. You don't need experience. You don't even need money right now. All you need is a willingness to understand the logic behind a calm approach, so that when you do take action, it feels deliberate instead of reactive. Here's how we'll break this down. First, I'll explain the core idea behind a calm way to start investing. Not tactics, not products, just the mental model that keeps things simple and manageable. Second, we'll expand that idea and make it feel real. We'll walk through beginner scenarios, common assumptions, and what's actually happening over time when people invest calmly instead of emotionally. Third, we'll translate that understanding into a grounded way of approaching investing in your own life. Not step-by-step instructions, but principles that reduce decision fatigue and make consistency easier. By the end, the goal isn't excitement, it's clarity. You should feel like investing finally makes sense, and that you don't need to rush it. The calm way to start investing begins with one simple idea. Investing is not about making smart decisions quickly. It's about setting up a system that works even when you're not thinking about it. Most beginners approach investing like a test. They feel like they're being graded on every choice. What to buy, when to start, whether now is too late. That mindset creates pressure, and pressure leads to hesitation. A calmer way to look at investing is to see it as a long-term process of participation, not prediction. Think of it like planting a tree. You don't stand there every day measuring the soil and adjusting the angle. You choose a reasonable spot, plant it, water it regularly, and let time do most of the work. The mistake beginners often make is assuming investing rewards intelligence first. In reality, it rewards consistency first. This is why complexity is usually the enemy at the beginning. The more decisions you feel responsible for, the easier it is to do nothing. A calm investing approach reduces the number of decisions you have to make. Not because decisions don't matter, but because making fewer decisions makes it easier to stay involved. In a moment, I'll show how this plays out over time. But first, it's important to understand what investing actually is at a basic level. At its core, investing is simply the act of putting money into productive systems and giving them time to grow. That's it. It's not a competition, it's not a daily activity, and it's not supposed to feel dramatic. When investing feels dramatic, something is usually wrong. A calm approach accepts that you cannot control outcomes in the short term. What you can control is how often you participate and how long you stay involved. This is why starting calmly matters more than starting aggressively. Aggressive starts often burn out. Calm starts tend to last. Another way to think about this is like learning to drive. You don't begin by racing. You begin by understanding the controls and practicing steady movement. In a moment, we'll talk about what people assume they need to do at the start and why that assumption causes unnecessary stress. Let's look at what this actually looks like in real life. Imagine two beginners. The first beginner feels pressure to get everything right immediately. They read constantly, They compare options. They wait for clarity that never fully arrives. Months pass, sometimes years. They still feel like they're about to start. The second beginner takes a calmer approach. They accept that they won't understand everything at once. They choose a simple, reasonable path and begin participating. They don't feel smarter, they just feel less stuck. What most people assume is that the first person is being careful and the second is being reckless. In reality, the opposite is often true. Time is one of the few forces in investing that actually works in your favor. But only if you're present. Here's a useful mental model. Think of investing like joining a moving walkway at an airport. You don't need to run. You don't need to know how fast it's moving. You just need to step on and keep walking at a steady pace. Standing on the side because you're unsure doesn't make you safer. It just means you're not moving. Now let's look at a time-based illustration. Picture someone who starts calmly in their 20s. They don't invest large amounts. They don't optimize. They just show up consistently. Over the first few years, nothing exciting happens. This is where many people quit. But over longer periods, the effect of consistency becomes more visible. Not because of brilliance, but because of duration. Now compare that to someone who waits until everything feels perfect. They might start later with more confidence, but less time. What people often assume is that starting later with more knowledge makes up for lost time. Sometimes it does. Often it doesn't. This is why calm investing emphasizes starting sooner, not starting smarter. Another common assumption is that you need to monitor investments closely to be responsible. In reality, over-monitoring often leads to emotional reactions that undermine long-term results. Calm investing treats short-term noise as a relevant background activity, not something to react to. Before I explain how to apply this mindset, there's one more misunderstanding worth clearing up. Many beginners think investing should feel motivating, but calm investing often feels boring. That's not a flaw, that's a feature. Boredom usually means the system is doing its job without demanding attention. So how do you translate this understanding into something you can actually live with? The goal is not to copy someone else's setup. The goal is to reduce friction. A calm approach focuses on making investing easy to continue, not impressive to start. This means prioritizing habits over outcomes. Showing up regularly matters more than choosing perfectly. It also means removing unnecessary decisions. The fewer choices you feel responsible for, the less likely you are to freeze. Calm investing fits into your life instead of competing with it. It doesn't require constant checking. It doesn't require emotional energy. Another key principle is patience with yourself. You don't need to understand everything now. Understanding grows naturally as you stay involved. Think of this as building familiarity, not mastery. Mastery comes later, if you want it. A calm setup also respects your attention. If investing starts to dominate your thoughts, it's usually too complex. The aim is to reach a point where investing feels like a background process, something quietly running in parallel with the rest of your life. In a moment, I'll summarize this into a simple way to think about starting. But first, remember this. Doing something consistently at a reasonable level almost always beats doing something aggressively for a short time. Calm investing is not passive because it's lazy. It's passive because it's sustainable. You don't need to rush this. You don't need to force confidence. Understanding the system is more important than timing your entry. Once the logic makes sense, action becomes easier and calmer. To recap, a calm way to start investing focuses on participation over prediction, consistency over intensity, simplicity over complexity. When investing feels understandable, it stops feeling intimidating. And when it stops feeling intimidating, it becomes much easier to stick with. If you want to go one step deeper after this, the next video explains how money quietly compounds over time. Not with hype, but with clear, patient explanation that builds directly on what we've covered here. Take your time. Clarity compounds too.